I'm Dallas Johnson, lead instructor of the Automobile Dealer Training Association. And to today's podcast, I want to talk about exactly how to obtain a California dealer's license. This is your dealer training podcast, and we're going to cover that content right now.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Hello, I'm Dallas Johnson, lead instructor of the Automobile Dealer Training Association, and we are approved by the California Department of Motor Vehicles to provide your California dealer pre-license and continuing education for licensed motor vehicle dealers. So I'm going to cover the process real quick here, kind of give you an overview in this podcast of exactly what you must do in order to obtain a California dealer's license. The first step is going to be to take that 6-hour dealer training course. California, like just about every other state in the country now, is requiring a pre-licensing requirement. So you're going to be able to take that online, and whenever you want to do that, you can go to californiadealer.com and click on the big blue Enroll Now button. And I'll give you that link several times throughout the podcast today, so you can go ahead and sign up for that course. And we are approved, and I look forward to meeting you in your online dealer training course. I'll be giving that course for you. My name is Dallas Johnson. So you do have to sit through the entire 6 hours of video, and then your official certificate of completion will be mailed to you immediately following that course. We will definitely get that to you as soon as possible.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Every single person, I'm going to cover those steps with you, because every single person that wants to have their name on a California dealer's license will have to have a live scan fingerprinting as well. And we'll cover this process extensively in your dealer training course. Very soon, you're going to have very large oversight over very large financial transactions. So many of the vehicles that you sell are going to be worth several thousands of dollars. So before the California Department of Motor Vehicles issues you a dealer's license, it gives you complete oversight of these large financial transactions, because many times it's just going to be you and one person in your office doing that deal, and these are large financial transactions. So the DMV is giving you a lot of oversight over these, and they want to make sure you didn't get out of prison for robbing a bank last year. They want to make sure you've never stolen a car or rolled back odometers. The California Department of Motor Vehicles requires dealers to be basically of a higher level of ethical standards than the average person walking down the street. And then they want to make sure they're not giving a dealer's license to somebody that was, managing some auto theft ring a couple of years ago. So each person whose name is going to appear on the California license will have to have a live scan fingerprinting. So when you have your fingerprints taken, the tech is going to forward an electronic copy to the California Department of Justice. If you do live in another state, you can certainly get a dealer's license in California, but you're going to need to obtain a fingerprint card from your home state. But if you live in California, which I'm assuming the majority of you do that are listening to this podcast, you can go to oag.ca.gov. Once again, that is oag.ca.gov. And you'll be able to easily find out how to get your fingerprints. I always say you can always Google California live scan as well. And we're going to go over that content with you in your dealer training course as well. So you can definitely get a live scan and get your fingerprints taken. Basically, this does show the state that you were not just, managing some nationwide auto theft division or something like that, So if you have any questions about your live scan, you can call Occupational Licensing, and that number, if you got a pen handy there, is 916-229-3126.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Once again, my name is Dallas Johnson. I'm lead instructor of the Automobile Dealer Training Association, and we are approved by the California Department of Motor Vehicles to approve your pre-license and continuing education requirement. Now, here, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast here. In order to have a California license, you've got to have a business building. Okay, you have to have a location for your license. The state does not allow some type of cloud-based dealer's license that allows you to basically show up into a parking lot somewhere and, sell a vehicle and then disappear forever. So the state does require that you have a business building, and there are a few requirements that you'll need to meet. So your building must be permanent in nature. So it can't be just a portable building that you throw up. It's got to be permanent in nature, preferably with a foundation. One of the most important things, though, is you've got to make sure that the building you're using is zoned for a dealership. So how do you find out if your building is zoned for a dealership? It's very easy to do, actually. Normally, you can call your city hall As for planning and zoning, tell them the exact address that you want to use for your building, and then they're going to inform you whether or not you can have a dealer's license at that building. So the state law is very clear. The DMV requires that you do meet local zoning requirements for your building. Now, the state of California is going to require that you have an office with direct entry. That's direct entry. The state doesn't want your customers have to go down some long corridor through 2 or 3 different businesses to get to your dealership office. They want an office with direct entry. And the building must be separate from any other business and must be used exclusively for the operation of your dealership. And the law is very clear in the state of California. You're going to have a desk, a chair, and a filing cabinet and a phone. And the office is also where you're going to store records, because you're going to start this huge paper trail when you get your dealer's license in the state of California. And we're going to delve into those record requirements extensively in your dealer training course. Basically, you'll need a copy machine, and you'll need to scan everything that comes across your desk. And you can either store these on paper or you can store them digitally, okay? Now, the state of California is also going to require that you post your hours of operation on your building, because the DMV wants to make sure that your customers know when you're accessible, whether they have questions about a vehicle maybe they were interested in purchasing from you, or maybe they got questions about a vehicle they've already purchased from you. When you get your dealer's license, you will have to be accessible to your customers before and after the sale.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Display area. Retail motor vehicle dealers are going to be required to have a display area for the vehicles that you're selling, and must have sufficient space for the vehicles that you're licensed to sell. So, if you're only selling motorcycles, you're going to need to have enough display area for motorcycles. If you're selling motor vehicles, then you'll need the space to display your motor vehicles. Your lot, just like your building, has to meet local zoning requirements. The lot has to be for the exclusive use of your dealership, and the Department of Motor Vehicles in California does allow an additional display area as long as it's in 1,000 feet radius from your main building or any branch location without requiring a separate license. However, if you do, say, for example, have a separate display area, then you're still going to have to meet the signage requirements, which we're going to discuss here in just a few moments. Now, one of the most important things I want you to be aware of, sales activity must take place only at your licensed location once you get your dealer's license. And I want to spend a few moments on this, because right now, I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, or maybe you're watching this podcast on YouTube, we've been posting all of our podcasts on YouTube now. Right now, I'm assuming that you do not have a dealer's license. So you can put a for sale sign on your car and stick it in front of Walmart or whatever until the Walmart manager runs you off. But once you become a licensed motor vehicle dealer, that law changes. And then you're only going to be able to have your retail sales activity right there at your licensed location. So let's just say, for example, that you have a customer that contacts you about a vehicle that you have for sale online, and they might ask you to show that vehicle, like, say, for example, at some mall parking lot or something like that. That's called off-site sales activity, sometimes referred to as curbing your vehicle for sale in a non-licensed location. The Department of Motor Vehicles strictly prohibits any type of off-site sales activity. So you're going to have to explain to some of your customers when you get your license, the state law does prohibit dealers from engaging in off-site sales activity to retail customers. And, you will have to visit your lot for any type of sales activity. Now, you can sell your vehicles wholesale at any dealer auction anywhere, but when you're selling retail to a customer, that's a person that does not have a dealer's license, that sale is going to have to take place right on the licensed location. So no off-site retail sales activity is allowed. And on a final note, a display area is not required for wholesale dealers. Now, they do also have what's called a broker endorsement. So I want to talk about that for just a moment. When you have a retail license, you can also, California allows you to get what's called a broker endorsement. And that will basically allow you to act as an intermediary between a buyer and a seller. Or say, for example, a dealer has a vehicle that one of your customers wants, then if they're willing to work with you, you could sell that vehicle for them as a broker, but you still have to have the full used motor vehicle dealer license in order to do that. So we'll talk extensively about that in your dealer training course.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Let's talk about your dealer surety bond requirements. So there's a couple of different types of dealer surety bonds that are allowed by the California Department of Motor Vehicles. First of all, if you're going to sell used motor vehicles, you have to have a $50,000 dealer surety bond. If you're going to be a motorcycle dealer, an ATV dealer, or a wholesale dealer that sells less than 25 vehicles per year, then you can get a $10,000 dealer surety bond. Let me talk about both of those again, okay? Used motor vehicle dealers are going to require to have a $50,000 dealer surety bond. And if you're only selling motorcycles or ATVs, or if you're a wholesale dealer and you're selling less than 25 vehicles per year, then you're allowed to have a $10,000 dealer surety bond instead. So, you can get a dealer surety bond from most insurance agents or bonding companies. These basically protect fraudulent dealers, and they ensure that dealers operate with a very high level of ethical standards. So if for some reason you were an unethical dealer and you were selling defective vehicles and not disclosing those defects to your customers, well, that's against the law, and we're going to talk about in your dealer training course the importance of ethics and giving full disclosure on the vehicles that you're selling. Well, obviously, the California Department of Motor Vehicles has zero tolerance for any dealer that's going to be conducting fraudulent sales activity. Obviously, that's some old school stuff there. So, with that being said, you're going to have to make sure that you get full disclosure. And if for some reason you sold defective vehicles and didn't disclose those to your customers, well, then you're probably going to lose your license and you could get convicted of fraudulent sales activity. And, you could go out of business and not have a license. Well, if that ever happens, this would give your customer some type of financial recourse. So these are designed to allow, a customer that's bought a vehicle from a dealer through a fraudulent sales transaction to be able to sue the dealer, even if that dealer is broke. So no matter what, if a dealer's broke, bankrupt, doesn't have a penny to their name, their customers are able to sue that bond. And it just kind of ensures that, us motor vehicle dealers operate with a very high level of ethical standards. So a dealer bond is going to be priced based on your credit score. So I'm going to give you a really rough estimate here. With good credit, a $10,000 bond should run about $100 to $200 per year. And with good credit, a $50,000 bond should be running about $300 to $400 a year. It could be a little bit less than that. But any blemishes on your credit score can definitely drive that up dramatically. So I do want you to be aware of that. Your dealer bond can never expire during your licensure period. Some bonds are not expiring, and your insurance company will just send you a bill. So keep that in mind. We're going to talk extensively about that in your dealer training course. I'm going to show you exactly how to find the cheapest bonds possible. And if you're ready for that course, you can go to CaliforniaDealer.com and click on the Enroll Now button. But let's keep on talking about things. And next, I want to talk about your business sign.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
So you have to identify your building as a dealership. So the Department of Motor Vehicles wants to make sure that your building has been identified and is identified as a dealership. So you have to have a permanent business sign. Now, your sign has to be a minimum of 2 square feet. And the name must be identical to the name that's on your license. And the state would actually like it to be viewable from 50 feet away. So do please keep that in mind. They will allow a temporary sign as long as you can show that you have paid for and ordered a permanent sign. So that's a pretty easy requirement. Any sign company or digital, online company that can do printing for you will be able to get that produced for you. You just have to make sure it's permanent in nature. Make sure that your sign is at least 2 by 2 feet. And make sure that you can see it at least from 50 feet away.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Now, you're going to be submitting some photographs with your application, and there are a lot of photographs. Now, one thing about your photographs, when you're submitting these to Sacramento, there is a certain order and there's a certain amount of photographs. It's a really easy requirement, but the state's a little bit strict on this, and they're going to want specific photographs of the inside of your office, the outside of your building, where you're going to store your records and things like that. And then you're going to have to actually staple these to a piece of paper and label them and number them. It's really not complicated, but we're going to go into depth on those in your dealer training course. We've got a whole list of them for you, so you can just go right down the list and make sure that you do have your photographs enclosed. Submitting photographs of your location is part of the dealer licensing requirements. So we will cover that extensively in your dealer training course. And there's quite a few that you'll be doing. But one other thing that you're going to need to do once you get your license is you're going to need to keep records.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Most of the records that you keep are going to have to be kept for a minimum of 4 years. And the federal forms that we're going to cover extensively in your dealer training course must be kept for a minimum of 5 years. And there are a couple of IRS records that must be kept for 7 years. So you're not going to throw anything away again. We're going to delve into this extensively in your dealer training course when you decide to go ahead and enroll in that course. I'm going to cover that extensively for you. The great thing about the state, they do allow you to either have paper records or you'll be able to store your records online. So basically, I mean, if you think you can run this business without a copy machine, I'm sorry, but you cannot do that. So you're going to have a copy machine scanner, and you're basically going to copy everything that comes across your desk.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Now, in order to have a dealer's license, you're going to have to go to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration and get what we call a resale permit, okay? And it's very easy to do. We're going to cover this extensively in your dealer training course. In order to sell vehicles and in order to have a dealer's license, you're basically going to be collecting tax. And when you do a title registration, which we're going to show you how easy that is to do with some electronic title registration software, you're going to transfer that tax to the DMV. So when you sell a vehicle, you have to collect tax and transfer that tax to the DMV. Well, in order to do this, you've got to have a resale permit from the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. So it's very, very easy to do. You know, if you want to walk into your local California Department of Tax and Fee Administration office, you can do that. But I'm going to show you in your dealer training course how easy it is to do right online. So we're going to jump right online in your dealer training course, and I'm going to show you exactly how to get your resale permit. Very simple to do. It's a few screenshots that we'll go over here. But if you've never had a resale permit, and by the way, if you've never collected sales tax, I'm going to show you in your dealer training course, when you decide to take that to get your California dealer license, you're basically going to crunch a couple of numbers into this extremely simple titling program, and then you're going to be able to collect that sales tax on the vehicle you sold and automatically transfer it right to the DMV when you're ordering the customer's title. And once you've done this a couple of times, you're going to be an expert. Even if you've never owned a business, even if you've never collected sales tax, it is a very, very easy process. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that when you enroll in that course. So I will certainly let you know. You know, one thing, and I'm going to give you a lot of good phone numbers in that course as well. If you have any questions about sales tax or collecting sales tax, things like that, I'm going to give you a number. It's 800-400-7115. And throughout the course, I'm going to give you that number a lot, 800-400-7115. And, you know, I've called technical support phone numbers all over the state on multiple occasions trying to find out information. And a lot of times I'll wait on hold for a little while, but when you have tax questions, specifically sales tax questions that generate revenue for the state, they answer that phone on the first ring. So I will certainly give you that again right now, 800-400-7115. I'm also going to cover, on a side note in your course, if you're providing automotive repair, you have to do a quick registration with the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And I'll show you how to do that as well. That's bar.ca.gov. That's only if you're doing repairs to the vehicles. If you're not doing repairs, then you won't have to worry about that. But I will show you real easily, a couple clicks of the mouse, you're going to be able to get on that website and register if that's something that you're interested in as well. Now, I also want to talk to you about registering your business with the California Secretary of State. So obviously, not only is the California Secretary of State the state's leading election authority, but they're also the leading recorder of business entities, and they're going to want a record of the business that you're getting ready to start. So in your course, I'm going to show you exactly how to register your business. Now, I'll go into this in depth in your dealer training course. If you are an LLC, it's required. If you're a limited liability partnership, it's required. If you're a limited partnership, it's required. And if you're a general partnership, you can. If you're a sole proprietor, you're not required to. But sole proprietor, if the dealership name is your personal name, like let's say for example, you're going to be a sole proprietor and you're calling your dealership your name, Sarah Sanchez, then you're not required to register. But if you're Sarah Sanchez Motors and you're a sole proprietor, then you would have to file what's called a fictitious name statement with the county of your dealership. And it's not complicated at all. I'm going to cover that process extensively in your dealer training course.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Another very simple step. And the great thing about when you take our course, we're going to cover all this information extensively, and then I'm going to give you some checklists at the very end of the course that makes it very, very easy. We cover, we'll keep you busy 6 hours. There's a lot of content in your 6-hour course, but once you've taken that course, I think you're going to be very confident, very ready, and prepared not only to apply for your license correctly with the DMV, but also to run your new business. So it's very informational. And we're going to cover the process of filing your local license. You have to have a local license. So the DMV out of Sacramento, they're going to require that you are legally operating in your locality. In order to legally operate in your locality, you're going to have to get your local business license. Sometimes they might call that a tax registration in your city or a tax certificate. So you can always contact your city hall. If you are in more of the rural areas, like you're in an unincorporated area, then you can contact your courthouse. But you can just go, say for example, you're in Sacramento, then you can just go ahead and Google Sacramento business license. If your dealership's going to be Los Angeles, you could just Google Los Angeles business license. And, sometimes they'll call them a business tax certificate or a tax registration certificate. So there's a lot of different names throughout the cities in California. So you will certainly be able to do that. And I'm going to show you how to easily ensure that you have a local business license, so that way you're going to be able to easily comply with all the state laws. This is a very profitable business, and as I say in every one of my courses, this is a profitable business. The reason we are so tightly regulated and there's so much paperwork just to begin, not only to ensure that you're not, that you weren't managing some auto theft ring, but this is a high profit industry. So with that being said, high profit industries tend to be regulated extensively. Like if you want to get a real estate license, that's high profit, so it's regulated extensively. If you want to get an insurance license, that tends to be very profitable. And I'm here to tell you that I do believe that a dealer's license is going to be very profitable for you. So that's why we do have some tight regulations. But I'm definitely willing to follow these rules and guidelines to be able to get into these dealer auctions. You're going to be amazed when you see what a vehicle's selling for at a dealer auction and what's going to be selling for on that dealer lot you've got just a few weeks later. Let's talk about your new bank account.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
You are going to have a bank account, very easy process, but you're going to have an account in your dealership name. So you can't just intermingle funds with your personal account. The state is very clear. They want you to have a bank account in the dealership name. And I'm going to show you how to fill out this form. This just shows the DMV that you do have a bank account. So there's one little document that you're going to sign, and that's going to show the state that all of your profits, all your millions of dollars of profits are going to be deposited into that account. So we'll definitely talk about that as well.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
One of the requirements in order to get a license in a state is going to be obtaining a federal tax ID number. Sometimes we call it your employer identification number. Sometimes we just call it a federal tax ID. And this is the number that the IRS uses to identify your new business. Now, I'm going to make a very bold prediction. I think that when you get your dealer's license, I am very confident that your income is going to go up. Many times dealers' incomes go up dramatically because this tends to be a very high profit industry. And I guarantee you the federal government's going to want a little bit of that action. So at tax time. So you're going to have an employer identification number. And this shows the DMV that you are prepared to pay federal taxes on your newfound incomes. And, there are companies out there, they'll charge you $600. To get your tax ID for you. I'm going to show you in your course how to get it for free. There's no charges. We're going to jump online and I'm going to show you step by step. We're going to go to the IRS website and get your employer identification number. And I'll show you that process in your dealer training class. Very, very easy to do. And we'll cover that extensively in your dealer training course.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Once again, I want to give you that reminder. If you want to take this course, you can go to CaliforniaDealer.com. CaliforniaDealer.com and just click on the big blue Enroll Now button, and it is a 6-hour course, so you have to watch all the videos, you have to participate in the entire course, and the state does not allow your certificate of completion to be emailed to you. You have to get an original that we're going to mail to you, and we'll be mailing it out of our office in Los Angeles, so it does take a few days to get you that certificate once you've completed that course. But I promise you, the moment you complete that course, we're throwing your paperwork in the mailbox within an hour. So if you're in Southern California, you get a little bit quicker. But still, I'm hoping that you get it within just a handful of days, even if you're in another part of the state. But you cannot download that. The state's very clear. We have specific numbered official certificates of completion that we possess. And then as soon as you complete your training, we will certainly mail those to you. Now, I want you to be aware, before you get your license, you're going to have to get a quick location inspection. Okay. So you're going to have an occupational licensing inspector. They're going to run through your business. And I predict it's going to be a very, very quick process where they're going to come through and they're going to basically make sure that you have a building and and a sign, and make sure that you're, meeting local zoning requirements. They want to make sure that you are operating out of a physical location. Like I said, the state's not going to allow you to have like a cloud-based license. You have to have a location for your lot. And I say lot, if you're a wholesale dealer, you do not have to have a lot. But I always want you to be aware, if you're a wholesale dealer, you can only sell vehicles to other licensed motor vehicle dealers. Sometimes that's a good way to get started in the industry, but wholesaling is, in my opinion, is not what it used to be. It's not nearly as profitable as it used to be, because think about this scenario. If you're a wholesale dealer and you go into a dealer auction, you're buying vehicles wholesale, and you're trying to mark them up and sell them to other dealers, well, those dealers know exactly what the prices are at the wholesale auctions as well. And I've always, you got to have a real good reason to convince another dealer why they should buy a vehicle at you from a markup instead of buying the vehicle directly from the dealer auction. So, there are wholesale dealers out there that have great relationships with franchisors and things like that, and they're able to buy all those. But, it can take years to get to that point where you have a great relationship with a franchisee where they're going to allow you to buy all their vehicles. So I am a big believer that retail is the way to go. Wholesalers can only sell to the handful of other licensed dealers out there, where a retailer can sell to the world. I mean, you can sell to people in California, all across the United States. You can export your vehicles all over the planet with a retail license. So that you think about the income of having to only being allowed to only sell to licensed dealers, or every person on the planet. I'm going to take the opportunity of selling vehicles to every person on the planet every time.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
So, hey, with that being said, I do want you to be aware. My name's Dallas Johnson. I'm going to cover this entire process with you. That was basically the majority of the startup process. And one final step, I always want you to be very, very aware of. After you've taken your course, and we're going to cover all that paperwork, I'm going to show you exactly how to apply for your license correctly. And then you are going to need to take a quick DMV exam. And we're going to cover that with you. It's easy. I think it's pretty rare when someone fails that exam. I mean, you're going to have to go into a local occupational license and sit down and take that exam. It shouldn't take more than 25 minutes. It's a 40-question test, and that is the final step before the DMV will actually mail you your license. So we're going to cover that extensively. And, when you've taken your course, it really is, the test that you take is a lot of common sense stuff, and I think you're going to go in there and nail it. If you don't, you just pay an additional, I think it's $16, and $16 to take it again right then. You're allowed to take it 3 times in one day. You should be able to pass it on the very first time. Especially once you've taken our course, I'm very optimistic that you're going to be confident and you're going to be ready to start what I do believe is going to be a very lucrative business for you.
You are listening to the Dealer Training Podcast with Dallas Johnson.
Hey, once again, I wanted to do a quick podcast today and kind of give you the startup requirements of getting your California dealer's license, okay? So you can get a retail license. You can get a retail license with a broker endorsement that allows you to basically operate as an intermediary between a buyer and a seller, or you can get a wholesale license, which does not require a lot. But no matter what, your location will have to meet local zoning, and we'll talk about that extensively. We are approved by the Department of Motor Vehicles. I've been training dealers in the state of California for, I believe, 5 years now. So I've been an approved instructor for the state of California for about 5 years now. We are approved by the DMV. We worked with them on a continuous basis in Sacramento. And when you're ready to get your own dealer's license, and I'm a big believer that even if you've never owned a business in your entire life, this is an exceptional business to start, because you're going to have unlimited technical support from the DMV in Sacramento. So I'm going to give you some phone numbers in your dealer training course. I'm going to give you some email addresses that are going to assist you and hopefully make the process of not only applying for your license as easy as possible. Once you get your license, I think it's going to be easy to maintain your compliance, and you've got unlimited technical support, so I'll give those phone numbers to you. And there's not a lot of other businesses that you can start where you have unlimited technical support from a state agency. So they want you to be successful, because every time you sell a vehicle, you're going to be collecting sales tax for the state. So the more successful you are, not only are you going to make a great living for you and your family, but the more successful that you are, the more sales tax revenue the DMV is going to get. So they give you that unlimited technical support. So when you're ready to change your life and get your own dealer's license, you got to take that 6-hour course, and we are approved for that. So you can go to CaliforniaDealer.com, CaliforniaDealer.com, and just go to the big blue Enroll Now button at the top of any page, and I'll be giving that class for you. So I certainly look forward to meeting you as you get ready to start your new business. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Hopefully you're listening to this, or maybe you're watching this on the YouTube recast. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and attention. And I want to wish you the very best of luck with the operation of your new business. Thank you very much.